here with animallovelanguages.com, animal intuitive and sensitive animal communicator and Reiki master practitioner. And some of you may not realize that in addition to facilitating interspecies communication sessions and providing energy healing and wellness for pets using a variety of modalities, I also teach animal communication. And what I wanted to talk about today, right, Pearl? This is my little baby here who's roosting on my leg. It just couldn't be any cuter. What I wanted to talk with you about today is actually probably the biggest stumbling block any animal communication student, no matter how eager, no matter how open, no matter how attuned, is eventually going to run headlong into or stumble over or come up against in some form or fashion. And that is simply the feeling, the sensation, or the suspicion that you're making it all up. Oh, I heard this amazing thing. This dog told me this. The cat told me that. My parrot said this. I just had a knowing to go out in the backyard and I discovered that my pet was doing something or eating something they shouldn't. And I'm so grateful I went out there, but how did I know? All of these different things, these intuitive pathways that offer up information on using channels that we're not necessarily accustomed to paying attention to or to tuning into or to trusting, can feel like making it up. And there's a couple different analogies that I like to use with my students that really kind of explain what's going on when we're consistently receiving validation. Maybe we're working with an animal and they're human, and we're receiving validation every time we do these communication sessions. Oh, yes, that exactly describes my animal's personality. Or, oh, yes, the vet absolutely said that this is something that they're really struggling with health wise. And yet we go home or we enter into our next communication session and there it is again. I must be making it all up. How could this be happening? And the first analogy I like to use is actually a really quick visualization. Imagine that you are Albert Einstein. I know I was like super not good at math and really atrocious at science. So this is a stretch for me, but just imagine with me, play with me for a moment, if you will. And imagine as if you're Albert Einstein, but we're talking like pre-Einstein, like the single name, like super celebrity phenomenon. We're Albert Einstein. We're sitting at our patent clerk desk and we're feeling fairly miserable because we're nobody and nothing and we are going nowhere. And yet, something inside of us feels the theory of relativity. It's everywhere. It's all around us. We can feel it so tangibly, but we can't share it yet. I can just imagine early Albert Einstein trying to express to his dad or his mom or his family or his friends or the skeptical in his community that just thought, this poor guy can't even get a job. His dad has to beg somebody to give him a job. And he's trying to explain what he feels so deeply to be true. And they're all looking at him like he is cuckoo brains, right? And this is the same phenomenon that you see anytime anyone is trying to bring anything new into being. Of course, in those early days of creating something new, whether it's a human baby or a new love relationship that we're creating, or it's a poem or a work of art or a theorem or a mathematical formula or whatever it is, at some point along the way, we are actually going to be making something up. We are making something that was not there a moment before or was not there in any kind of tangible, physical, cognitive form that can be interacted with, that can be known on the mental level, and that can be shared. And so, what does this look like mechanically speaking when we're learning animal communication? Well, what it looks like is it's using both hemispheres of our brain as well as all of our sensory intuitive pathways fully. We're no longer just parked up here in our left brain hemisphere, analyzing and cogitating and reasoning and thinking ourselves to death. We're no longer trapped in grammar class trying to put all of our words in the right order before we spit it out there. We're in a different communicative space. And what that means, and this is something I really go into depth with in my animal communication classes, is that when the information comes in, it comes in as if we were a non-human animal because we've got to do a 180 on how we receive and process and share information, how we communicate when we want to talk to non-human animal species. And what that means is we sense it first and we feel it and then we imagine it and then we communicate it in words. So this is why I often say that people are from Mars and pets are from Venus. If you've ever been in speech class and you had a speech instructor share that 10% of communication is verbal and 90% is nonverbal, and then you spent the rest of the semester, the rest of the course wondering why nobody ever said anything else about the 90%. If there's that much of it, it must be important. And why don't we talk about it more? Why don't we go into a little more detail other than just we'll make more hand gestures or pick somebody in the audience and make eye contact? That's about all you get. And so here we're really delving into the 90% and beyond, because where the animals start with their communication is where we kind of leave off. And we default to our head, to our left brain specifically. And animals communicate from their gut. What we might call the heart is really their gut brain, their right brain hemisphere, the feeling and the mental picture. If you want to learn more about how this might look or feel or work in a human animal, my best resource, my best go-to resource is Temple Grandin. Either the movie Temple Grandin with Claire Danes, which is a great overview of how this might work in a human animal, or Temple Grandin's book, Thinking in Pictures. Now, Temple Grandin's Dr. Temple Grandin, she's highly functioning autistic. And so she thinks in pictures, and she spent her career working with commercial livestock animals, reimagining and reworking their living spaces to create humane living conditions for these animals. And her passion is helping human animals understand how these non-human animals experience their world. And her special gift is that her brain is wired similarly because she is autistic. So she thinks in pictures. She doesn't think in words like most humans. We don't necessarily pop out that way, but we are conditioned and taught from such an early age that it's really all most of us realize is available. We have to actually cross paths with someone who tells us there are other options or have an experience that shows us that there are other options. Jill Bolte Taylor, PhD, who wrote My Stroke of Insight, when she had a sudden early midlife stroke, it pushed her into her right brain function because her left brain was kind of shut down. So that's another example, rather extreme one. That's another good place to look. So let's just pretend for a moment. Let's imagine into being my love. This is my angel. Taught me everything I know. So let's imagine for a moment that we want to imagine into being a conversation with an animal. We can't start in our left brain. We can't start up in our heads. That's the part of us that thinks we're making it all up. We have to start in our gut. We have to start with our feelings and our mental pictures. And that we're in this particular case, we're imagining into being an interspecies conversation, a conversation with another being, which means we only have half of the picture anyway. We have the questions that we want to ask, we have the information that we want to learn about, but we don't have the animal's half of the conversation. We don't know what that animal is going to say or share. And so it's going to feel in a way like we're making it up. because we're receiving something that's being made up in that moment by that animal. So let's just consider how, when the information comes in, let's go back to our Albert Einstein example for just a moment. And imagine that he's sitting at his patent clerk desk and he's super frustrated because he's feeling something that feels so true. It feels so real. It feels so authentic to him. And yet he does not have any real facility with sharing it yet. So, what's happening for him? Is he making it all up? Is he crazy? Are all those people right who say he's never going to amount to anything and all of his woo woo ideas? What's happening is he's actually feeling into something that's true, that's in the process of coming into being. He's receiving information from the world around him. He's actually having a communication with the planet, the solar system, with the universe, and receiving information from the beingness of everything around him about what is true and what is real. And it's coming in first through his sensory pathways, through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, sensing, deep gut knowing, his intuitive knowing sense pathway. And then it doesn't head straight to, it's not like it comes into the gut brain, right? And heads straight up to the left brain. No, it's got to pass through our right brain first. And the right brain is the domain of feeling and sensing light, color. It's a multi-sensory, multi-dimensional series of information pathways that come in, and it comes through the right brain first, and then at the end of the process it lands in the left brain, and that's when it gets quantified in some way and becomes shareable. For instance, when I'm talking with Pearl here and I want to share something with Pearl's grandma who's in the kitchen, if I want to receive Pearl's end of the conversation, it has to come in through my sensory pathways. It has to travel up through my right brain that's connected to all those sensory pathways. And then it pops over to my left brain and finally shoots out the other end as words that are shareable, that I can go to my mom and I can say, this is why Pearl screams at 4:55. It's because he wants his evening rice. So at some point, if we've got something that new that we want to birth, that we want to share with the world, we've got to put it in some kind of a format where it's shareable. And usually for us human animals, that means words. Sometimes if you're, Albert Einstein or another brilliant scientist or mathematician, it means formulas, it means theorems. If you're a biologist or a chemist, petri dishes, it means we've got to have something. Before the iPhone was the iPhone, it was a gleam in somebody's right brain. The computer or this wonderful wireless mouse or this pen or this beautiful community of houseplants that's hanging out. This little one right here, right? You were an egg before you were a bird, weren't you? Yeah, and before that, you were just a dream. You were a gleam in your parent bird's eyes, huh? So it's the same with us. At some point, when you're practicing with an animal, when it becomes seamless enough, I no longer always have to sit down and parse out, okay, I received that information because I felt it, or I received that information because I saw a little mini movie, or I received that information because I heard a song lyric, or I received that information because I saw color, or I received that information because I smelled something. I no longer necessarily always have to go through that process because I'm remembering, I'm relearning, I'm reopening these intuitive pathways. They're open when we're born. And this is why I met so many adults that I talk with say, well, I had early experiences of intuition or even psychic phenomena, and I shut them down because nobody around me validated them for me. And sometimes they were even actively invalidated. And so you come in with them open, a lot of times they will shut down, and then we have to go through the temporarily painful process, which involves a lot of left brain mentalizing, a lot of doubting, a lot of repeated worries that we're making it up, whatever it is. And then they open back up again. And this is why so many of the greatest contributions, the wonderful from symphonies and movies to incredible scientific discoveries to wonderful new recipes. My mom's probably out there in the kitchen cooking one of those up right now. I mean, shoot, I definitely skipped a generation. I can't boil an egg without something going wrong. But for her, that sensory pathway is a beautiful, open, wide open channel. And she brings beautiful new things to life every day. And when I'm eating them, I don't question. I don't sit there wondering, I wonder if my mom made this strawberry shortcake up. It's right in front of me, right? Because those pathways are open. She's able to bring it through, and there it is right in front of me. And I hope that's what she's making right now. Whatever it is you want to bring through. And here we're talking about the animals end of the conversation. It's always going to feel like you're making it up at some point. And that's actually oddly how you know it's working. That's the hardest thing to wrap our left brain mind around, is that when we feel like we're making it up, that's gold. You're on to something with that. That's how every brilliant new anything comes into being and eventually gets quantified, codified. It becomes shareable. It's put to words. Sometimes it's put to music, and it becomes something that we can share with others. We can share with the world, whether that means an animal and we want to talk to their human about what they shared or what they need. I'm a songwriter, so I birthed many, many songs, some great, some not so great over the years. I'm also a writer, so I've brought many books, and there's always a moment when I'm writing and I think, oh my goodness, I'm just making all this up. And I'm thinking, yeah, I am. And so if you want to learn more about that, head over to animallovelanguages.com. Got lots of free tools that will teach you kind of the building blocks of animal communication and intuitive pet parenting. And there's some wonderful free intuitive gifts, EFT tapping for pets, and why do you choose me, a little channeled guide to your favorite species, and lots of fun things that you can learn. And if you want to study with me, I've got courses that are going on. You can learn when the next animal communication course is launching and how to be a part of that. And I would love to have you. So head over to animallovelanguages.com and check out everything there is. If you'd like me to chat with your animal, I would absolutely be honored. And I look forward to welcoming you back to our next video. If you've enjoyed this video, please do share it with a friend who loves animals as much as you do. Do all the usual things like subscribe. It really helps me out. It certainly lets me know that I'm just not alone here in my little animal communication wonderland making videos for myself. I so enjoy hearing from you. If you have questions or you're studying animal communication and you've arrived at a sticking point, you're not sure exactly what's going on or how to break through, let me know. I'd be happy to do a little contemplating, do a little dreaming, do a little imagining with you, and we can figure out how to break through that together. Okay? All my love for now.